over the past probably close to 4 years, we'll just put it that way, President Biden has not brought the unity that he promised when he was first elected. But in the last few weeks, he has managed to do a few things that literally have brought Republicans and Democrats together. For example, the pardoning of his son, Hunter. That has received a lot of criticism from both sides of the aisle. And now there's his administration's response to the mysterious drones that have been spotted in the skies of New England. What in the world are we supposed to be making of the way his administration has handled all this? Well, joining me now to discuss all of this is retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. After a distinguished military career, General Teichert retired as the Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of the Air Force for International Affairs, where he led international engagement on behalf of the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Space Force while managing the service's entire security cooperation portfolio. General Teichert, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always an honor to have you, sir.
Jody, thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, to start off, let me start with a clip of what White House National Security spokesman John Kirby told the press yesterday. This is very interesting.
The analysis thus far in an investigation that is ongoing has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity. We're at the beginning here, not the end. There's a lot more work to be done, and we're working closely with state and local authorities to gain more information. I would argue that we're moving pretty well here.
Wow. Well, what do you make, General, of the responses that we're hearing from the Biden administration?
Jody, I'm most bothered by how dismissive John Kirby and others have been. You can't tell us that there's no risk or that it's not a threat if you don't know what these things are and where they came from. I also want to point out that this has been going on in New Jersey for about 3 or 4 weeks. It follows something that happened last month, U.S. bases in the United Kingdom, and last year that happened around a U.S. base in Virginia. And my concern is that either the government massively lacks transparency to the American people about what is going on, or they're frankly not competent. But either way, they cannot categorically tell us there is no risk if they don't know what's going on themselves.
Yeah, that is a great point. I think that is a concern, certainly the concern that I feel, and a number of people that I've spoken with personally about it. How in the world can the administration be so confident that there's no threat to the public, no threat to the public safety or to our national security, and then at the same time appear to know so little about these drones?
No, and at the same time, we've got this robust aviation and aerospace system in the United States that can allow us to track objects of all sorts. And the fact that John Kirby will tell us that we're just trying to start tracking down what these things are, when we have information, no doubt, that can tell us their point of origin and their point of destination, and why the federal government has not scrambled to both where they came from and where they are going to get to the bottom of this as quickly as possible, is something that is lackadaisical at best and negligent at worst.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how many there are, but I have heard reports of friends, people on the ground watching them while I was on the phone with them, and they're talking dozens and dozens and dozens, and when you add that to other, I mean, we're talking hundreds of these drones all over the place. What can you tell us, General, about the overall capabilities of drones today? What can they do?
It is very clear that drones are the future of warfare. And drones of this size, maybe reportedly about 6 feet in diameter, can carry a variety of payloads. Those could be payloads that spy. Those could be payloads that release something onto the ground. Those could be a variety of possibilities for some of these drones. And they also can get in the way of other aviation activity in the United States. My concern is that if these are foreign adversary drones, then they are doing probing activities to see how we respond. And much like the Chinese spy balloon from 2 years ago, the federal government would rather ignore it instead of do something about it until the public clamors long enough that they've actually got to do their job and protect our sovereignty.
And at that point, quite frankly, if they have been gathering information, it's a little too late. Information will have already been gathered. So what would be the proper response, in your opinion?
Jody, it does go back, in my mind, to our tracking capabilities that can tell us where these things came from, where they launched from, and then where they ultimately end up. And it is very easy, based on all the tracking systems that we have, to go to that point of origin or point of destination and very quickly get to the bottom of all of this. The fact that we apparently have not done so is a huge concern to me and should be to the American people. And while a lot of people are talking about immediately engaging these drones, I believe you can get a lot more information from where they launch from and where they are going to that can tell our federal government definitively what's going on, instead of just telling us that there's no indication that there's a threat or a risk.
Yeah, you know what, like you've already mentioned, we saw this very similar response with the Chinese spy balloon that floated across the country. It just seems like it's deja vu all over again. Listen, General, while I still have you with us, I'd like to get your opinion, your thoughts on the latest developments in the Middle East. Of course, U.S. Secretary Blinken is over there. But how has the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria changed the dynamics of the Israel-Hamas war?
Jody, we are very fortunate that in spite of the fecklessness of the American administration in the last 4 years, that we have a friend and ally in the Middle East, in Israel, and Prime Minister Netanyahu, that has demonstrated peace through strength. And the fact that he stood up as quickly as possible in response to the October 7th terrorist attacks, and not just took the fight to Hamas, but has unraveled Hezbollah and has set in motion a chain of events that has fundamentally reshaped the Middle East. That is all because of a strong partner and ally in Netanyahu. And we should be marveling and appreciative of the opportunities that come with reshaping the Middle East in a way that is away from the strong domination of Iranian influence that we've seen for decades up to this point.
Do you think this is going to affect the hostage negotiations at all?
Jody, I think there's a good chance that when you see the shift of balance of power so quickly go towards Israel, it means that they're in a stronger negotiating position. Now, we've said that there's hope for a negotiating position of release of hostages now for several months. But the fact that this dynamic now is causing Hamas leaders to indicate that some of those Israeli demands about maintaining presence in Gaza are something that is on the table instead of dismissed by Hamas, give us an indication that we should be cautiously optimistic that based on the current power dynamics, that we could see the release of some or all of those hostages in the near future.
Well, so far you're pleased with the steps that Israel's been taking since the fall of Assad regime?
Jody, absolutely. They have shored up their defenses. They have taken out some of the Syrian threatening elements of their military. And now they're parlaying their successes against Hezbollah and now the unraveling of the Assad regime in Syria to further change the dynamics of power that are favorable to the West and certainly favorable to Israel's interests in the region.
Can't thank you enough, General John Teichert. Always an honor to have you joining us here on Washington Watch. Heartfelt thank yous for your service to our country, and thank you personally for coming on the program and keeping us informed on these critical issues.
Jody, call me back anytime. Thanks a lot for all that you do in service to our country and our matchless Lord.